I'm not depressed. I'm just impossible to please. I used to be depressed, but then I fixed that because it turns out testosterone was really bad for me, and I had a hunch that gender transition would help a lot. Turns out it helped a lot more than I thought. It really helped out a lot. And so even though I seem like I'm depressed, I'm just really hard to please. I have like really high standards. I have daydreams about what I would desire in the world. Definitely I like this. I like this park a lot. I could use more of this. And besides stuff like this, that I can easily connect with my daydreams and my tastes and stuff, I'm really hard to please. Really, really hard to please. Like even something about the world, I'll go to a city and I'll be like, that's neat. Glad they like it. Or I'll go to some place in the country and I'll be like, it's neat. Glad they like it. But it's so rare for me to be pleased by something. Whether it be a social interaction, a video game, especially video games, one of my own creations. Oh, God's help me, I can't be pleased by my own creations that much. It's rare. I don't keep many of my own things around because it's difficult to enjoy them. And I think I'm impossible to please because I have impossible standards. And they aren't even like great standards. Like they aren't even possibly great standards. They're just impossibly strict. And so I do my best to get around that. But there's always that in the back of my head where I'm just not pleased by something. And so I'll end up pretending to be pleased because, or at least not allowing my inner displeasure to come out. But it always sometimes comes out. It's just I'm fairly okay with acting, and I'm fairly okay with, I kind of have to make a second daydream or a second fantasy to feel like, yeah, I can get behind this. This is part of that fantasy. Like not so much a fantasy like I'm seeing different reality, but a fantasy in the way of like, oh man, I wish I had that. And like for instance, there's a really, really blue house over there. If I came out here and my best friend said, we're going to live in that house, I would be like, oh, And if I really hated that house, which, now granted, I don't really feel that strongly about it, but I'm not pleased by it. It's fine that it's there, but if I had to live there, I'd be like, well, I'm not pleased by it. So I'd drum up a fantasy, and I'd be like, what would it be like to live in a blue house? I could have some fun with that. Because in my fantasy, I can kind of build up an emotional connection, and then there's a blue house, and I get to stay in it. I don't, but in that thing, I would make a fantasy to help me connect. Like, there's been a few things like that. Like, a friend of mine is giving me a motorcycle. Don't know when I'm going to get it, but I might get it. And at first it wasn't a motorcycle that I liked, but then I thought, you know what? That Kawasaki's kind of cool. Yeah. You know what? It might be a bit heavy. Really too heavy, but gosh, I think I could see myself driving that. Then all of a sudden, after a few weeks, I was thinking, you know what? I kind of want that thing now. I'm excited to get it. And so in many ways, I have to work myself up to really enjoying things, and it's difficult because without that, I'm impossible to please. And even with that, I'm very hard to please. Really, really hard to please. Because like there's no amount of fantasizing that will make me okay with like getting a loan or something. I'm kind of weird about that, where I don't like using credit. I don't like it. And there's a lot of things that I would not be able to get myself to fantasize about it. And so yeah, it might come off that I'm depressed, but I'm just impossible to please. I can't tell if that's high standards or low standards or misplaced standards. It's not good or bad, it's just difficult. And the thing is, it's not like I can easily change it, because whenever I look at each individual thing, I feel very strongly, and there's a definite reason why I feel a certain way. And so I was like, well, shit, I'm pretty difficult and impossible to please. And whenever I look at it, I can't think of anything to make myself pleased over that I can't already make myself pleased over. So I guess I'm going to kind of stay impossible to please. Yep.